baby, listen to the speaker. No matter what, just say the word. Loving all I see.
Pop, Perswayable. What's going on, everybody? Yo, we're almost at 10,000 followers. That is crazy. And I looked back and I was like, what was the first video that I did? And I realized that I did a video on the top 3 persona builds that we were doing at the time in season 1. And I was like, you know, I got to do that again because it's changed a little bit. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the history a little bit of what's been used on a competitive level and also what is being used right now. So before we start, I hope that you all had a good Thanksgiving. I love y'all beautiful people. And the development team sent me this. Mr. Whiskers, pretty cool, huh? So, I'm going to do a little giveaway. I'm not going to post it in the YouTube title or any of that garbage. It's only for those who want the new persona builds. But what you need to do is you need to comment. You don't need to like or subscribe to me. I'm ugly. I look like Drake and Ben still had a baby that got pushed down a flight of stairs. So, with that being said, though, I got this little cool program where it'll pick a random user from all the people who comment. So I'm not like fishing for comments. I don't really care about the comments. I read them and I answer them, but I don't care about the quantity. You know, that's why I never beg people to like or subscribe. You guys just do it out of your own graciousness. So, with that being said, if you want to be part of this little competition and get Mr. Whiskers, just comment something. Doesn't matter. Make sure it's not too mean. I'll have my emotions hurt. And so anyways, let's get right into it. So let's talk about the persona builds. What we have a little bit of a shift with what we are seeing for survivor persona builds. Alright, this isn't it. So back in the day, this was your main persona build. This was #1 persona build used for all thieves and all magicians. This is what everybody used when the game first came out. So for those who don't know, the left wing helps you kite. We should know this by now. Alright, if you don't know it, then just look at it, alright? Just understand the basics of it, because I don't want to make a 45-minute video explaining every single perk. And then we had this with borrowed time. And what that did is, you know, ciphers go down, pops up. Okay, we all know that. This used to be the #1 thing. And then coordinators used to use this. This used to be the #2 thing, specifically for coordinators. Well, things have changed, especially as of 2 months ago. And then things are still changing as of now. So I'm going to give you the top 3 builds, and I'm going to let you choose what you want to do. Now, what I'll say is that usually the last 3 points don't really matter, and I'll get to that point in a second. So, this is what the #1 build is really looking like right now. You can take these 2 away if you want, and you can allocate them anywhere else, alright? People have different variations. You can, if you're a forward, you can increase your struggle speed because that's been buffed recently to 10% instead of 5% as the first one. You can increase your stun speed with pallets. You can increase your vision over here so you can have announcement so you can always see. You can use this too if you want vision. It doesn't matter. The last 2 points are subjective and it's based on if it's tournament play and it's based on if it's rank play, right? Tournament play is a little bit different because you have 4 people that you can talk to. I almost did 5. Whereas in rank mode, after tier 5, you only have 1 other person that you know. The other 2 people are random. So sometimes having this vision right here and having this vision could be good, whereas it might be better to go like this because now you can crawl a lot faster and sneak through the hunter to get some escape. So anyways, let's talk about this, right? So what happened was, this used to be the #1 build right here, okay? The idea was you need to kite the best that you can, right? We only had thief back in the day. We had thief, we had magician, we had coordinator, we had mechanic. That's usually what the tournament teams were. That was back when mechanic had an 8% global buff to everybody's decoding speed, which got nerfed down to 3%, and then the puppet got 125% decoding speed to kind of balance the character off. So anyways, what happened though is that we used this to get better at the game. We used this because a lot of us were learning how to kite. We didn't really know how to navigate the map. It's the same thing in Dead by Daylight, right? Which I've been playing a lot of recently. So with that being said, what happened is that a bunch of the top survivors, right, including myself, including Yo Mama, including, not Your Mama, the user Yo Mama, including a bunch of us, we got really good at kiting. We got so good at kiting that we got a little cocky and we said, you know what? And the Chinese players did this over in the Chinese server. They're doing the same thing. They changed it to this. And the reason being so is that we realized that, first of all, hunters aren't going to chase you for 5 ciphers in top tiers. They'll just leave. They'll go somewhere else, right? Furthermore, new characters have been introduced, right? Back in the day, we only had Thief, so we needed to kite the best that we could with Thief, using the pallets and getting that speed bonus. But now you have a whole bunch of what I call boo-boo characters. You make a boo-boo, but you can make up for it. Boo-boo. So what that means is, like, think of Perfumer. Oh no, Clown's coming after me. Put perfume down. Hit me. Boom! Boo-boo! Get rid of it. Put the Band-Aid on, and you're good to go. Still have full health, but back in the day, we didn't have that. So now, because of these new characters, including Seer, including Perfumer, you're seeing a lot more of this. Now, also, in the addition to the hunters being buffed, it's getting a little bit more challenging to only rely on the coordinator to do rescues. Sometimes the coordinator's going to go down. That doesn't mean the coordinator doesn't know what she's doing. It just means that the hunter outplayed her that round. Which means that we didn't really have a lot of flexibility with this. This was too one-dimensional. It was essentially, I'm going to kite, coordinator, you go for the rescue, and if the coordinator doesn't get the rescue down, the whole team's kind of screwed, right? So that's why a lot of people started changing to this. And this is for those boo-boo characters. These are for the perfumers. These are for the seers. These are for the people who don't really need to rely on this as much. In fact, there's actually a lot of mechanic players who use this. They say, you know what, the hell with it. I'm not going to be able to last forever anyways with the mechanic, and if I get tunneled, I only need to last 60 seconds, right? 60 seconds of active kiting. 45 might even be good if it takes them 25 to find you, right? Because if you can do that and you're down to 2 ciphers now, the coordinator comes and rescue a tide turner before halfway. Now you're living for at least 20 seconds. The hunter downs you, and then it takes 10 seconds to get to the chair. That's another 30 seconds. Now the coordinator can go back, save you, and use the flare gun and give you that instance of flexibility to keep moving. Or somebody else with tide turner can come in with the coordinator, coordinate it, no pun intended, where he does the rescue and she does the flare, and now you have tide turner. And if you do go down, it's another 30 seconds, all of them will be popped. So, now what's interesting about this persona build is that some people are starting to wonder if it's still valid. And the reason being so is that this really started to fruition about 2 months ago when it was only the clown, and it was only the geisha, and it was only the photographer, and really at that point in time, those characters are relatively easy to kite. The clown's obviously not the easiest to kite, but as long as you're in front next to a pallet early game and you're not cipher rushing too hardcore where you're allowing him to connect with you on his first dash, and a lot of clowns now use insolence, so after that they get their skill unlocked permanently after the first hit, depending on what portion of the game it's at. What people are realizing is that it doesn't matter. You don't need to do 5 cipher kites, and they're impractical. You only need to last 60 to 90 seconds, so use the overabundance of pallets and windows that you can use and really position yourself. But now that you have Spider Queen who came out, who Soul Weaver whose buff came out, now people are starting to wonder if they should go back to something like this, because what's happening is that you have some survivors who used to be top kiters, and now they're starting to go down too fast because of the buffs that these hunters are getting. The hunters are getting stronger. Right? Because we were looking at the win rate, and some of these top hunters and some of these win rates are only 40%. So a lot of these hunters for top tier survivors were easy to cut. And that's why they went here. They say, hey, no, we don't need the left wing. Why do we need this? I can last 90 seconds without it. Alright? So my job here today is to show you the 3 top personas. Obviously, I've talked about all 3 of them already. And it's up to you to know the pros and strengths of each one and to use it accordingly. Now, again, remember what I told you. 2 points don't really matter. This one and this one. You can get rid of these and flex it. We call these flex points. Right? There's no actual real objective measure that proves that one is better than the other. We know that this is the standard core, and you can use the last 2 points anywhere you want. Like I said earlier in the video, I think I said it. I had to redo the video. I did the whole video, and I had no sound. And I'm like, oh, damn it. So, in rank play, sometimes it's good to have this. So they have vision when you go on the rocket chair, and you have vision with announcement. But in tournament play, you don't really need that because everybody's on Discord, right? You're not in rank 5 where you're playing with 2 other players. So this could help you with the crawl speed and being able to maneuver beyond. Really, it's up to you with what you want to do. But this has become the #1 persona build, pretty much across all builds. Seriously, even mechanics are starting to use this now because it adds a lot of flexibility. Any hunter will tell you it's extremely annoying when people keep saving and every single person has Tide Turner. There's actually some talks about maybe it being too overpowered and maybe the devs need to look at it. That's a discussion for them to figure out. The devs do a good job at listening to the players. They really do. So, yeah. All right. Number 2. You had this. This is back in the day. This is old school. You could still use it if you just want to focus on kiting and you're not doing any rescuing whatsoever. Some people say that this is viable as a mechanic build because mechanics really shouldn't be running towards the hunter and using Tide Turner. Some people will disagree with that. And that's perfectly okay. It comes down to your play style, right? And this is kind of old school. This one's kind of being outdated. This used to be the old coordinator build. The problem with this build is that oftentimes coordinators will go down at the end of the game trying to do a rescue. I need to get a drink. I don't know. I'm not good with video editing, so y'all gotta watch me sip some coffee. Okay. So the problem with this build, it's when you face top hunters, okay? When you go in for the rescue, there's a good chance that they can kill you, right? They can hit you far away or whatever the case is. The problem with this is that if you get injured or you get hit or you get killed, you can't use your cipher game to your advantage. So in top tiers, the exit gates are pretty much opened every game. They should be. And if they're not, it means the survivors are playing a really bad game. Which means that when you have broken windows open, borrowed time open, if you're a coordinator and you go in for the rescue, you get hit, you try to do the rescue, you get hit again. Now the hunter has attack recovery speed, right? So he's now reload, like he's trying to, go through the animation. You pop that last cipher, you get up, you have Tide Turner, go for the rescue, you both can split up. Even if one of you dies, it buys you enough time where you can get 3 people out. You can use your cipher advantage to come back up. This is why people are using this. Because in top tiers, usually you're always down to that one cipher. So if the coordinator goes in for the rescue, gets killed, you can use this to your advantage to pop back up and try to sneak in a rescue with your Tide Turner. Okay? Whereas if you didn't have this, and you use this, now you have 2 people down, now a third person has to go and rescue. Now you're putting a third person in harm's way. So the 3 top persona builds. You see a lot of this. We'll see this with coordinator. We see this with forward. We see this with Perfumer. We see this with Seer. We see this with a lot of those boo-boo characters. We'll see this with mercenary. Good kiting characters. This is old school. You could still use it if you're not really too worried about... Now, here's the reason why people are starting to use this again. Because the hunters are starting to get buffed, it's getting harder to rely just on your natural resources, right? So remember, a lot of the top players, we started using this because we got so good at kiting, even against top hunters, at least some of us, we were like, I don't even need all that other stuff, right? I just need the last 75 seconds. I don't need to worry about a 5-cipher kite. For the reasons that I mentioned before with the rescues and the Tide Turners eating up time and all that stuff. This game goes by so fast, it's really unbelievable. So, with that being said, this is your boo-boo, like I made a mistake, but you can use your cipher advantage to help you with the final rescues. But, because you don't have this built up, especially if you're a mechanic player, it's harder for you, especially against a Spider Queen. Against a good, competent Soul Weaver, you need every advantage possible. A lot of people are starting to say Spider Queen is overpowered. I think I'll disagree with that. I don't think she's overpowered. I think that the skill set is not there to counter her because there's a unique way that you need to go against her. Blue Racecar is one of the best hunters in the game. I'm going one-on-one with him all the time. It's a way for me to get better. It's a way for him to get better. I do consider myself one of the best kiters in the game. I consider him one of the best hunters in the game. And he was able to down me in 30 seconds as the Spider. And it's because I messed up. It's not because he cheated. It's not because Spider Queen was overpowered. It's because I made a mistake. 2 other times I was able to kite him for at least 65, 70, 80 seconds. Which means that we were down to 3 ciphers. I did my job as a kiter. And he's one of the best Spider players that I've seen. He's really a great player. I'm honored to go against him one-on-one. It makes us both better. Right? So, with that being said, with players like Mechanic, it's getting a lot more difficult. when I'm a mechanic, I can't do that against him. It's really hard. It's a probability, 50-50. At that point, he's either going to get me or I'm in a strong part and I can, somehow maneuver myself if I get lucky. Right? So using this would actually help me continue to survive. So now you have some mechanics who are still using this, but you have some mechanics who are now going back to this because they understand how difficult the Spider Queen is. Because you don't want to go down too early. A lot of these survivors, especially in the United States and European servers, they're going down, even top survivors, they're going down too early. And they're going down too early because they're still playing how we were playing 2 months ago. And the question is, what do you do? This was okay when Clown was being played every time. Clown is actually easy to kite early game. You just make sure that you're not Cypher rushing to the point where you're not next to a pallet. As long as you're next to a pallet, you make sure he doesn't connect on his first charge. He'll have to use another attachment. Sure, he has insolence, but he won't unlock his second skill right away. So the question is, what do you do? Do you use this? Or do you go back to the old school way because these hunters are getting more challenging? Remember, we went here because it was easy as a top kiter to kite at least 65, 70 seconds against top hunters using this build. I didn't need all this stuff over here. I could just use my pallets and my map positioning. 3,000 games, we know how to do this. Now, it's getting difficult because you got characters like Spider Queen and it's starting to make us question ourselves. I have a lot of people who are saying Spider Queen is too OP. Well, maybe she is, maybe she isn't, but I know one thing, you need to adapt. So maybe that's going to force people to stop using this and abusing this, because 4 people using Tide Turner, I swear, it feels broken, especially as a hunter. So it's almost like they need to make hunters more powerful to make you start using this so you're not dying in 30 seconds. Remember, a lot of people are using this because they have faith in their kiting ability. So they take a gamble now. If you nerf all the hunters, then everyone's just going to use this and spam the Tide Turner. So now, these new hunter buffs are making people starting to wonder, do I go back to old school and really rely on some of the other people to do the rescuing? This doesn't mean that you got to use this as a perfumer or a forward, but as a mechanic, you might actually need to use this because the mechanic against the Spider Queen early game can be a very big disaster, especially depending on where you're positioned. So you need to make sure you can kite. You can't go down in 30 seconds. It's inexcusable. The last persona one, like I said, this is kind of phasing out for the reasons that I mentioned. You want to use your Cypher ability to your advantage. So when you have down the 1 Cypher and you go in for the rescue and you die, this does nothing. You don't get popped up because you don't have this wing open. And as a coordinator, you don't really need to worry about this because if he goes after you, first of all, you have a 10% Bolton bonus. If you're a perfumer, well, we'll just talk about coordinator. And if they kill you, even as a mercenary, you have perseverance. Even a gardener has perseverance on the rocket chair. Which means that now, if he decides to camp you, there's a good chance he's going to lose the match, especially since everybody else is using Tide Turner. Right? Because now they can actually... I had a brain fart. Now they can attempt to do a rescue on you. And if you're a coordinator and you're playing her correctly and you're not using your flare gun during your initial kite, which you shouldn't do, you should save your flare gun. If somebody rescues you, they have Tide Turner, you can also use flare gun and easily get away depending on where you are. Or at least bite up enough time, another 50 seconds. These are your top 3 builds. I think what we're going to see the most, is that these 2 right here. This is for 1 versus 4. Okay? A lot of people say, what do you use for Doctor? Doctor isn't used in top tiers. She's just not used, so we're not going to go over her build. It's just not... I know that they're buffing her soon. She's going to do 1.5 times the amount of healing. But right now, this is the main one. And it's going to be interesting to see if people start going back to here. If you're still a young kiter, you're still learning, I recommend you doing this build. You need to rely on those pallets because it's your job to stay alive. But right now, we're seeing this pretty much all across the board. And it'll be very interesting to see how the devs deal with this because having 4 Tide Turners just buys up way too much time. Way too much time. So it's very interesting to see where we're going. My job is just to tell you these are what we are seeing in top competitive gameplay. These are what we are seeing in tournament gameplay. This is what we are seeing in ranked gameplay. Remember that there are flex positions, right? You can use these 2 right here and use them somewhere else. You can use it right there. You can use it right there. It really depends. Okay, I'm just giving you generic builds, right? So if I was a forward player, I would actually get rid of this. I would put this because when somebody gets picked up by the balloons, you can see them through walls. That's why forwards can come out of nowhere and hit you. This is actually really important. So since you invest in this, you have 0 points. So you can go right here. You can invest in this so you can see the hunter. That would be good in rank mode, when you only have 2 other people that you're not talking to. But in competitive gameplay where you're talking to everybody, and in tournament gameplay where you can increase your struggle speed, which has been buffed. So these, I don't want there to be, if anyone tells you there's a specific build that's better, they're wrong. I'm telling you, they're objectively wrong. I am a top player. I talk to top players. It's just about your strategy. It's the same thing in DBD. There's no technically specific 4-perk build that makes it the best. There's usually a combination of 2 top perks and then the other 2 that people like to flex a lot. As long as you know that usually with each build, you really have flex of 2. I really hope I was able to help. I hope that I was able to explain the history, why the Persona builds have been able to change over time, and where we're currently at. It's going to be very interesting to see what some of these top players do between this and this. I do think that the third build is starting to phase out. I wouldn't really use it, especially as a coordinator. I don't think coordinators should use this. I really think that this is, I really should just write this as the top 2 builds, but there are some people who believe in this build. I think it will be permanently phased out eventually. I think it's eventually going to come down to these 2 builds here. Alright? Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys leave a comment. You don't gotta like or subscribe to me because I'm ugly, and you can use it. And I'll give it. Remember, you gotta give me your personal details. Don't write that in the YouTube comment. I'll contact you privately. The next video, I'll announce the winner. Okay. Hope you guys liked the video. Hope I was able to be thorough. And yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming up in the future. I love y'all. Y'all beautiful. Let's change the world. Take care.